The government is in negotiations to reduce the renewable energy target, and it's also in negotiations with other parties in a bid to finally agree to what medical authorities have been urging them to do, and that is to allow experienced Australian medical personnel to go to West Africa and try and fight the Ebola epidemic at its source. Well, to discuss a number of these issues around the government, joining me now from our Canberra studio is Helen Tudge, a Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. Helen Tudge, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. Now, Immigration Minister Scott Morrison. Helen Tudge, you can hear me, can't you? Helen Tudge, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can. I'm sorry, we just lost you for a minute. Welcome to the program.
Right.
Now, Immigration Minister Scott Morrison has come out to pressure Labor's Richard Marles to, I guess, re-clarify Labor's potential support for the asylum boat turn-back policy. Should Labor make their support unequivocal?
Of course they should. We were pleased that Labor finally conceded that turnbacks actually work. You'd have to be foolish to see that they don't work, given that there's only been one boat has arrived since January of this year. But what they haven't do is unequivocally said that should they be elected to government, that they would continue to implement this policy, and that's what we'd like to see.
So is it possible that the government and Scott Morrison, for political purposes, would not want bipartisan policy on asylum seekers because Scott Morrison can get more political mileage out of differentiation on this policy, and perhaps that explains him saying that Labor doesn't have the ticker to do turnbacks?
Helen, we've had a very clear policy in relation to border protection for many years. When we came to government, we implemented that policy, and that policy is working. Under Labor, there was 50,000 unauthorised arrivals came to this country. Since we have been in government and implemented our policy, only one boat has arrived. So it does work, and we just hope that if the Labor Party is elected, that they will continue to implement these good border protection measures.
But I don't
hold out hope just right now.
They have opened the door. Well, yesterday, Richard Marles said they may well continue this policy. Surely that would be something that your side of politics would welcome.
As I said, we welcome the fact that they finally have conceded that turnbacks actually do work, because for years they said that it wouldn't work, that it couldn't be done, that it was inoperable. And now, of course, they have finally backflipped on this, which is good to see. What we do want them to see, though, is just commit to actually continuing that policy should they be elected. That's what they need to do right now.
There have been media reports, and quite substantial ones, and then we've also heard from some other ministers in the Parliament that Scott Morrison wants to have or has ambitions to run a much bigger ministry. He wants to take over biosecurity from Agriculture Minister Barnaby Joyce. Has the Prime Minister put Scott Morrison in his place on this, as Foreign Minister Julie Bishop seemed to do over a super homeland security type ministry?
Helen, I think there's a lot of speculation in your preamble there. Scott Morrison has done a fantastic job in his portfolio, but likewise our other cabinet ministers have done a terrific job in their portfolio. And at the moment there is no plans to create a super portfolio, as you may have suggested. Each minister has got their jobs to do, and they're doing them well. So
are you saying Scott Morrison did not want to take over biosecurity from the Agriculture Minister?
Helen, Scott's doing a great job in what he's doing. The Agriculture Minister is doing a great job in what he's doing.
He did seem to see that there was some benefit in having all the sort of border protection issues under his area. The Agriculture Minister thought differently, that it really needs to be looked at in the Agriculture Department, where the expertise is.
Different people are going to say that particular issues should be dealt with in different portfolios. I think we've done very well because the border protection measures have worked. The way that we have dealt with the Ebola crisis so far is working. We're well prepared. Our hospitals are ready. We are prepared should there be an outbreak here.
So why does Scott Morrison want to take that over into his department?
Well, I think you're putting words into his mouth there, Helen.
So then I asked you, does he not want to do that? And you didn't really give me a straight answer.
Helen, I think you're putting words into his mouth, and I think you better ask him that question directly. But what I do know is each minister's doing their job very well right now.
All right, let's move on to the attempt to ban the burqa in Parliament. Did seem to end in a pretty embarrassing back down by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. Yet it raised its head again today with 3 male protesters, one wearing a niqab, one was wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit, another a bike helmet, trying to get access to the Parliament House. Now, one of those men is a known ban the burqa activist. Did security, for a start, handle the situation well today?
I have great confidence in the security of Parliament House. They do a terrific job in keeping the parliamentarians, all the staff, all the other people who work in this building safe. I think what we saw today was a bit of a stunt and doesn't really add too much to the debate. We've got serious national security issues which we're dealing with. It's up to... We live in a free country and people can take whatever action they like as long as it's done in a peaceful way. I think it was a stunt. They raised their points. Their point has been made, but we've got very serious national security issues to deal with. We're moving forward on those. There's legislation in front of the parliaments at the moment to help maintain a safe and secure Australia, and that's what we're concentrating on.
Well, another issue I want to talk to you about, and you mentioned it before, there was an Ebola scare on home soil. We're not completely out of it yet, but it looks like the 18-year-old woman does not have the Ebola virus. But a tragic milestone has been reached, over 10,000 cases of the disease, nearly half of them fatal. Is it time to perhaps stop dithering and sanction the sending of Australian health workers to fight it at the source in West Africa, as the Australian Medical Association, for one, is urging you?
Yeah, Helen, as you know, the government's been very reluctant to direct health workers to West Africa, the Ebola-affected areas, until there are careful procedures in place to ensure their safety and to ensure that they can be evacuated in an emergency. And until we have that security, until we have that surety, we won't be sending people to West Africa. If that situation changes and that we do have those sureties, then of course we'll reconsider our position.
So do you think the government has been perhaps pushed more, urged by the likes of the AMA to really get these negotiations happening with other parties who might be able to help an Australian worker if they needed to be evacuated?
I think, Helen, that we've had a very good response to the Ebola outbreak to date. It is a tragedy, but we've provided $18 million to the United Nations and $40 million to the World Health Organisation. And what the United Nations has said is that's exactly the type of assistance that they have been seeking to this point. So we're making a good contribution. We are monitoring developments very closely. But as I said, unless we have absolute surety that health workers can be safe, can be secure, and that there's evacuation procedures in place, then we are very reluctant to direct Australian health officials into that area.
Alan Tudge, the renewable energy target, your government's decision to change and reduce what was a set target that corporations had been working towards, would you agree it's been a bit of a mess?
I wouldn't agree with that statement, Helen.
It was a question.
What is it, 4 or 5 years now? For 4 or 5 years now, we've maintained a commitment to a 20% renewable energy target. That was agreed with Labor, I think, in 2009 from memory. Labor also put in place a legislated review mechanism. That review has gone forward, and as an outcome of that review, we are adjusting the renewable energy target so that it maintains its 20% target. Because what happened is that Labor did the forecast wrong, which meant that by 2020 we're actually forecasting to go to 26, 27% of renewable energy, when all along we had agreed to 20%. And that's what we're going to deliver.
All right, so that 20% was sort of set at 41,000 gigawatts per hour. That's what industry has been working towards. Would you agree that?
Well, we've said to industry for 3 or 4 years now that we will support a 20% renewable energy target, and we're committed to that. but we won't necessarily support a 26 or a 27% renewable energy target, which is exactly what we were heading towards. So our measure is a very small measure, but all it does is ensure that we meet our commitment. But
wouldn't you want to have more renewable energy in the system if you could? Why are you almost wanting to cut it in half?
Even under our plans, Helen, the amount of renewable energy which will be produced will double between now and 2020. So there's still going to be a huge amount more renewable energy developed. We're absolutely committed to renewable energy. We're committed to our 20% target, but we also want to ensure that electricity prices can be as low as possible. That's why we got rid of the carbon tax, and we want to ensure that there are jobs for everybody as well.
So do you think, in fact, when you say that, do you think that the industries, we've heard from the large-scale solar and wind industries saying, you know, this is going to really cost jobs, are they over-egging the pud?
Well, there's going to be, as I said, about a doubling of renewable energy produced between now and 2020, the first thing. But the second thing I'd say is that if we continued on the current path, well, let's have a look at what the head of the Australian Workers Union has said. And he said that if we do not make these adjustments, if we continue as is, then we'll simply be exporting thousands of jobs offshore. Because what will happen is electricity prices will go up, and particularly for manufacturers, that makes it very difficult for them to compete. So we're concerned about jobs in manufacturing. We want to keep electricity prices down, and so we're making this very sensible measure, keeping our election commitment of being a 20% renewable energy target, and we're hoping that we'll have bipartisan support in making this change.
So one of the head of one of the world's largest multinational companies, GE, who has an interest in this, agreed. He even said, just give the corporates certainty. They don't feel they have certainty because you're going to change it. Is that a fair enough criticism?
We are giving them certainty because 4 years ago we said there'd be a 20%. No, because 4 years ago, Helen, we said there'd be a 20% target. This is the first point. Second point is that we've had the review and that we're going to continue with that 20% target. And the third point I'd make in relation to that is that we have told the industry all the way along that we would not support, or would find it difficult to support, a 26 or a 27% target, but we would support what we agreed with at the start, being a 20% target. So they have known this all along. They've known that there was a review in place, and so I think there actually is certainty by maintaining that 20% target, not going less, not going more.
You say there's now bipartisan, hopefully you'll get a bipartisan outcome. Greens leader Christine Milne told Sky News yesterday she thinks she will do a deal with Labor on this. Will that be a genuine bipartisan deal?
Well, we've had bipartisan support on the renewable energy target ever since John Howard introduced it in 2001, and we hope that that bipartisanship will continue. We're in negotiations and discussions with the Labor Party right now, and they're constructive discussions, and we hope that we can reach an agreement.
All right, Alan Tudge, we do appreciate your time tonight. Thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks, Helen.